I'm going to talk about Community Analyst and Spatial Analyst today, which are two cloud-based GIS tools from Esri that are really designed to make GIS pretty easy to use either in non-governmental organizations for community analyses or in business. So business analyst is used a lot in the School of Business. It's taken off there, and they use it in a lot of their classes, and the students get into it quite a bit, basically because it's so easy to use, and you can just start poking around and doing things with it. So I'm Steve Moore. I'm the Director of Spatial Studies here, and we have Nate Strout over here, which you guys probably have met. Have y'all met Nate? Okay. So Nate's the Director of Spatial Technology here, and then there are three other people in the center: Dave Smith, Lisa Benvenuti, and Matt Flewelling. Dave's spatial instruction manager. Lisa is a data person, and Matt Flewelling is an applications developer. So I just want to go around and have you introduce yourself. So you say something here. Just tell me if you've ever used Community Analyst or Business Analyst.
I'm Shayla, and I don't think I've used Business Analyst, but I have used Community Analyst.
Okay.
I'm Sun. I use neither.
Okay.
Who are you?
You've used both?
I'm Alana. I've never used either.
Okay.
I'm Billy. I've used either.
Okay.
I'm Dominic, and I haven't used either of those.
All right.
I'm Mary, and it's new to me.
Okay, good. So Nate, since you've used both, tell me the difference between Business Analyst and Community Analyst.
Well, the biggest difference is probably the color of the screen. One's green, I think one's blue. Yeah, I'm colorblind, so it's a little harder for me to tell the difference.
That's why I
One
think.
says Community Analyst at the top, one says Business Analyst.
Right.
But they're really about the same thing. Like the interface is exactly the same, and I think so. One's more targeted for doing kind of community analyses, kind of demographic type stuff with different templates built in, reporting templates.
Mm-hmm.
And Business Analyst is more towards the business user. So, how many people own treadmills in my neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
Questions.
All
Which
right.
you can actually get with the data. It's really detailed data.
So it's, yeah, as I said, I'm not an advanced user either, but I've worked with them both quite a bit, and I can't tell any difference between the two, except that I have a different login. And I think there might be some different templates, and because they keep adding different things, and we'll look at some of the stuff today that it can do. This is going to be a fairly free format workshop. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit, and then I'm going to have you guys log in. They have some online tutorials that are pretty good if you just click through these things. And then there is I've designed a little suitability analysis that you could do to get an idea of. This is one of the big strengths of these tools is that you can define points on a map, you can define regions, you can go down the census tracts, you can go cities, statewide, countrywide, and you can do all kinds of analysis and reporting out of demographic data, spending behavior, all kinds of things. I'll have you just look at the data that's available. You can produce reports, PDF reports that are already all fancied up and very official looking, and then there's infographics that you can produce for these regions. So you can move around, you can define these regions and produce these reports. And then another thing that's a power of the software is that you can do suitability analyses. So on the business side, it might be analysis of finding a good location to put a store or a bank or a restaurant or something like that. For the community side, it might be a good place to locate a food bank or a place where poor people get services, or elderly people, or things like that, or a new fire station. So you can go in, you can define areas, you can define distance rings, you can define driving time and walking time zones based on the points that you've entered. And then you can do some analyses with that. So let me just show you, logging in is pretty easy. Basic. First I have to open up a browser. That's always a good first start. So the way I get to it most of the time is just Googling Community Analyst. And I'll show Community Analyst today. But it's just communityanalyst.arcgis.com is the URL for it. But if you Google Esri Community Analyst, it'll pop up with that. And once I navigate there, and I'll give you out a sheet today that we have a link on our Spatial Studies website that gives you the instructions for logging in. Mine's going slow, so I'm on wireless. You're leaving already?
I just realized I need to actually go to a computer.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you were tired of it already. Okay, so I'll pass these out while we're sitting here so you can have the. So this little handout has some, how to log in. There's some quick start videos. And the links to getting help. You want to see them? Yeah. Sure. Luckily I made just enough copies. Very good. Boy, this is taking a while. Mine to come up. Oh, it's taking so long. Sure. That seems. Oh, maybe I should just try. Is there oh, there's no cable here anymore. Here it is. So, why don't you get yourself logged in? And you have to use the enterprise login. So where it says enterprise login, type in Unit Redlands. You guys are all familiar with that? Oh, that's so good. I think the last time I taught this workshop and there were faculty here and everything, this part took like 10 or 15 minutes. So you type in Univ Redlands here. Can't type. And then click continue, come in as UOR. I'm gonna sign in again. And when you get to it, hopefully this, there it goes, a lot faster. Okay, everybody had something that looks like this? All right, so you just click on Get Started Now. And you should see something about create a project. You got that? What's happening over there? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you got these. Click create a project. Okay. All right. So you just type in. It can be my CA project or something.
Community honors.
CA, yeah.
California.
Yeah, my California project. You could put CAO if you want the online part. All right, then it'll grind through. And before, I'm just gonna demonstrate finding a location, and then I'm gonna cut you loose on doing the little tutorials, and well, actually, I'll show you how to put in a location, and then I'll show you some buttons that are good to know about. All right, my project has been created. All right, so I'll go here. And did yours go right into it? Yeah, mine.
Mine went right.
Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do, bear with me and watch me for a little bit first. I'll have you work through these tutorials that you see over here. They're pretty easy to follow, and they'll show you a lot of the basics. One little tip is if you happen to close this by accident, you just go down to Help and click on Guided Tour, and it'll put you right back in there. One of the basic operations we're going to do here is if you put in an address, I'm going to put in the university address, which is 1200 East Colton Avenue. And it pops up here. It'll drop a point and create a little pop-up for that. You can go in, you can edit the site name if you do the suitability analysis. Hopefully we'll get to that. I'm going to call this Site 1 in the suitability analysis, which I will do right now. I'll call it Site 1. Okay, and then you click Apply to apply that name. As you see here, it has some choices. One of the basic things you need to do would be to add rings, drive times, or walk times. So once you click on that, it'll default to rings, 1, 3, and 5 miles. Or you can do drive times, 5, 15, 5, 10, and 15. Or you can change those to whatever you want them to be. And then walk times is another thing, 5, 10, and 15. Right now I'm just going to choose rings, and I'm going to apply that. Okay, and it automatically comes up with these rings that is put on the map. And then you can create reports and infographics and comparisons based on this, the region that you've identified. So the tour is going to take you through that stuff. Just a couple of things to be aware of is that if your map starts getting messy, you can click on this button here that's called Clear Map. And then it'll give you choices of what's on the map, and you can just click Site 1 and clear that out, and it takes it off the map. So I think what we do, go through the tutorials, and what I'll do is show you a little bit later about you can create maps in Community Analyst or Business Analyst. It automatically saves everything you're doing as you go along, and you can go, I'll show you how to get back to where your projects are stored. You can take the maps that you create in Community Analyst and bring them into ArcGIS Online, which also allows you then to bring them into ArcGIS Pro. If you created some color-coded maps or maps of interest that you wanted to do further analysis with, or use as backgrounds and things like that. But for now, why don't you just get started on the tutorial, and it's pretty easy. You just click on Try It Now, and it'll lead you through what you need to do. You can do worldwide analysis. The data sets vary by country, depending on how open or how much they are able to acquire these data sets, but you can do analyses on any of the countries that are listed here, and they're grouped also by continent. Antarctica does not seem to have much down here.
If they can't find my house, I'm leaving.
All right, let me, can I have your attention just again? I'll show you a few things that are good to know about Community Analysts. Once I get logged back in. All right, so a Couple of the buttons here, yeah, I have some tips on this notes thing about measuring, which is pretty easy. One thing is if you're creating a map, you've created a map that you really like, and this is nothing to write home about right now, but if you want to export it, there's a PDF export option over here. Okay, where it allows you to do basically a little layout, and you can save it as a PDF or an image. So if you want to drop it into a report that you're preparing, you can do that. Okay, another one that's kind of cool is whatever map you create in here, you can share it out to ArcGIS online, so it'll wind up in your content. So you can give it, just like you're in ArcGIS Online, you give it a title, give a description, some keywords, and then you can select which layers you're going to share and where you're going to share it. You can share it to your content. When you go into ArcGIS Online, you'll see the map will show up in your, I think there's a CA folder, or my maps, CA maps folder, and it'll show up there. And then you can bring it into ArcGIS Online and do other stuff with it, or you can bring it into Pro to do some other, if you want to do fancier stuff with it.
Can it work the other way around? Can we add maps to this?
Yep, here, if you click more maps, you can click on, you can do the base maps, as I have a note on that, and then you can click on web maps, and you can browse ArcGIS, which is basically our org, so you can go to your content. Like if you're in ArcGIS Online and you defined a bunch of, or even use Pro and you published a bunch of polygons and stuff that you wanted to bring into Community Analyst, you can do that this way. Or any other content that you've made. It'll just show up in here.
So I assume this is the same for business analysis?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they operate, business analysis, analysts and community analysts operate the same. And these are all the folders that you will see in your ArcGIS Online account. Once you log into, or start using community analysts or business analysts, you'll see this BA application data, project data, and CA, my maps. So this is my community analyst maps folder, except this is not I don't want to bring this map in because I have other, let's see if I can go to my content and bring a non-CA. Here's a buffer I created for Mono Lake. So then that's a AGO map that I created that's come into Community Analyst, and then I can treat this the same way. I can run reports on the map. And one interesting thing about the report, I don't know if it shows it in here, and about the reports, when you do data enrichment in ArcGIS Online, it actually has some natural history data in there, like soils and things like that, but I don't see that. This is all marketing stuff. Okay? There are questions like that. So you can do things in Community Analyst or Business Analyst, bring it into ArcGIS Online. You can build story maps from the maps that you've created and go back and forth. Let's see. The other thing is this is kind of an interesting one, which I really haven't figured out how to use, but you can add traffic layers, historical traffic layers, which I didn't have time. This is a new button that I hadn't seen before. And I hadn't really figured out. It seems like you could include it in suitability analyses somehow, but I haven't been able to play with that. But you click on this and it'll do traffic counts, and it gives you a range of years that you can include.
How far back does it go?
2007 it looks like, I think. 2003. Okay. And it should be showing now. I don't know. Maybe they don't have traffic count data up there. Then the other thing is where is all your content? You know, if you look at your project will be listed over here under this tab, and then you can go back to your All Projects tab, and it'll list all the projects that you've created, so you can go back and find what you've done. And it generally keeps everything that you've done. It saves everything to your content for the map until you delete it off. Okay, and I've noticed today, some folks were trying to do the suitability analysis and they had added a bunch of layers and grids and stuff like that. It was choking it, and that might have been what was happening in the back of the room. It was that there was just something non-standard that it couldn't handle in the suitability analysis, and it just wasn't doing anything. It just wasn't responding. It could have been that it was just sitting there grinding away trying to populate a huge grid and consume hundreds of thousands of credits. So far, no student has broken the bank. The center has broken the bank a couple times by accident.
We had a school business student do it. They geocoded 16 million points or something like that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, geocoded the phone book, and he tried it once and it didn't work, and he tried again. He tried like 5 times.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I think you want to, poking around. There's some interesting things I haven't gotten into yet. The tutorial will lead you through an infographic setup, like a template that they have.
So the infographic interface, how you add elements and stuff, is how the operations dashboard now looks like? I was told by an Esri person yesterday that they've changed the operations dashboard. So the course that I signed up for, Steve, that I did last month,
Yeah.
null and void. They've changed the.
Oh, really?
They've
Oh, glad we got you.
changed
No wonder you got
the
in there.
But it sounds like it looks more like what this infographic format is. Because instead of having widgets, you have elements now to link up with the workforce app.
Oh, okay. I figures as soon as you learn something, they change for me.
Change it.
All right, any other questions or anything? It's basically people who use this really like it because it's easy to jump in and you just start poking around. It's hard. What I've found is there's lots of variables. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what the variables mean. And if you go to the help menu and you go down to data documentation, they do explain their data. So the metadata about the data about the data is in there. I'm just gonna randomly pick something here. You know, if this is the right way to do it though. This does not appear to be the right way to do it. Okay, maybe it's up here. Anyway, I'd have to poke around myself. They do provide all the metadata about their data, which is helpful. And I have to admit, a lot of times what I do, if I'm trying to use like the crime index data, I'll just type Google Esri crime index community analyst, and it usually takes me to where I need to go. I could try that right now. There you go. So this is the descriptions that they have of the data. All right. Well, you're welcome. Stick around. Yep.